I am a skeleton in the laboratory. Every day. I drew over the refined and abstinent Ian. One day. He frowned and looked at me. Did you move just now? In a panic. I blurted out. No. Ian was shocked. Damn. You can talk. Ian is my secret crush. He is elegant and composed. Tall and has long legs. He always wears a pair of gold-rimmed glasses all year round. He looks scolded and handsome. And his value as a refined villain is maxed out. But I know it's impossible for us. Because I am just a skeleton in his laboratory. One day, I suddenly found that I had consciousness. Then as soon as I saw Ian's handsome face, I fell in love with him at first sight shamelessly. Ian appears in the laboratory on time every day and stays for 8 hours without fail. But I found that most of the time he is slacking off. He is even bored enough to play Minesweeper. Today he has come up with something new, cooking snail powder in an electric pot in the laboratory. Extra stinky and extra spicy. I can smell it all. The snail powder is covered with a thick layer of red oil under the bright light, and is boiling and bubbling. Just before it is fully cooked, Ian receives a phone call. Then he picks up a document, and goes out. The snail powder boils more and more. Seeing that the soup is about to overflow the pot lid, I carefully look around. I rush straight to the pot of snail powder, turn the temperature to low, and bend down to take a deep sniff. The fresh and tempting soup base, the smooth and springy rice noodles, the tofu skin, pickled bamboo shoots, and black fungus soaked in soup. I'm so greedy. The sound of fingerprint unlocking comes from outside the door. I am greatly startled and quickly run back to my original position. Ian pushes the door in and his expression is not very good. I feel that cold sweat is about to break out on me. When he approaches me, I find that there is an extra coffee stain on the chest of his shirt. No wonder his face is so stinky. Ian coldly starts to unbutton his shirt. When he is about to unbutton to his abdominal muscles, he stops and mutters something in a low voice. Then, he actually turns around. I unobtrusively turn sideways as well. The angle is just right for me to see the mirror opposite. But I forget. The mirror is two-way. Ian, who has just taken off his shirt, suddenly looks back and is facing my empty eye sockets. This rising star in the scientific research field is full of confusion in his eyes. He frowns and asks, "Did you move just now?" I am counting his 8-pack ABS. In a panic, I blurt out, "No." For the first time in his life, Ian cracks his ice-cold face. Damn. You can talk. 3. I am sitting face to face with Ian. He remains silent all the time. The snail powder is steaming and fragrant. I swallow non-existent saliva. Aren't you going to eat the snail powder yet? Ian gives me a complicated look. Then he picks up the snail powder, and starts eating noodles in front of me. He eats gracefully and quickly. I can't help but admire him. In this situation, he still eats so deliciously. Ian doesn't pay attention to me. From his fast-eating posture, I see 5 words making the best of a bad bargain. After eating the snail powder, Ian is sweating a thin layer due to the spicinses. Compared with his usual cold and clear appearance, he has a bit more of the flavor of daily life. I cheerfully introduce myself that I am the white-boned demon. His eyes are full of sympathy for my intelligence. Although you are a human skeleton model, the material is PVC and has nothing to do with human bones at all. I open my mouth blankly. So I am actually, he concludes decisively, a piece of plastic. For in the next few days, I am very depressed. It turns out that I am just a plastic simulated human skeleton model that Ian bought for 300 yuan with free shipping. Woo woo. Am I not worthy of him anymore? The white-boned demon and the plastic demon. The difference sounds too big. Ian gently curls his lips. There's not much difference. Anyway, neither of us is human. Thanks. I feel comforted. Ian no longer leaves me in the laboratory but takes me home. As soon as I come out of the cardboard box, the first thing I see is the calligraphy work hanging in his living room. 4 flamboyant characters. Materialism. I tilt my skull towards Ian. The next day, The words hanging there changed to agnostis. Immediately after, Ian starts a long period of working from home. At first, I am very happy. But I find that Ian doesn't slack off anymore. There are many things in his computer that I don't understand. And no matter whether I am sitting or lying down, there is always a line of sight that makes me feel as if there are thorns on my back. As I am counting the bones on my body, that line of sight comes again. Ian. Thanks to him. I am so nervous that I have counted wrongly 3 times. Ian closes his computer. He is not wearing glasses at home. His beautiful peach blossom eyes are extremely charming. I immediately lose my anger. He asks, "You said that I am the first person you see when you open your eyes?" I nod shyly, yes. Ian is surprisingly calm. Have you ever thought that if it's really like this? There are many things you shouldn't know. I am stunned. I know nothing about my past, and naturally think that I was born in Ian's laboratory. But in fact, I am not unfamiliar with this world. I know many things. I just don't know who I am. Ian hits the nail on the head. I suspect that you are a human being. 5 Ian focuses on another mysterious field, the soul. Those documents I don't understand are all about this aspect. He comes to a conclusion, which in my opinion is a nonsense. Although no one can prove the existence of the soul, no one can prove that the soul does not exist. I think to myself, I can also use this sentence pattern. Although no one can prove that you are talking nonsense. No one can prove that you are not talking nonsense. Ian says, if you cooperate with me, I am confident that I can help you regain your memory. He lowers his voice and is full of temptation. Don't you want to know who you are? I can't help but nod. Ian smiles. At this moment, his eyes are surging with the madness and arrogance of a genius. But what I think is that he is so close to me. I really want to kiss him. I think no matter who I am, I must be a hopeless romantic first. 6 Since I am a skeleton, there are not many available methods. Ian chooses to try hypnosis. I lie comfortably on the sofa. A man's deep voice makes me feel at ease. I unconsciously start to relax, just like slowly landing on a cloud. But suddenly, many messy pictures flash through the sky in my dream. A huge fire. And the fire lights up the sky. I hit the door lock hard. But I can't open it no matter what. Not only me, but there are also many people. Those noisy cries for help drown out Ian's voice. Behind the I'm not entirely sure what this is. Maybe it's the sky full of fire? I see a couple. Do you really love me so much? The man asks softly in the girl's ear. Then help me do one thing. Okay? The girl nods ignorantly. In the next second, a raging fire ignites on her body. The man with a blurred face says with a smile, "Good baby." I wake up abruptly. Ian asks me how I feel. I say, I saw a very serious fire. He thoughtfully writes it down. Is there nothing else? I pause. No. I didn't say the last scene. 7 The doorbell suddenly rings. I subconsciously look at Ian. He gets up calmly. You go to the bedroom and stay there without making a sound. But unexpectedly, the door lock moves by itself. I don't have time to go back to the 2nd floor. I turn around and want to go to the basement. But Ian pushes me. Go to this one. So I am pushed into the utility room at the corner of the stairs. He doesn't want me to go to the basement. Why? Why Ian? Oh, why are you thinner again? Is this Ian's mother? I heard from your uncle Wei that you took a long leave. What's going on? Ian explains a few words inferiorly. His mother keeps telling him to take good care of himself. I look out through the crack of the door. The 2 of them are both facing away from me. The stairway is only a few steps away from me. I hold my breath, tiptoe, and go straight to the basement. Although I am mentally prepared, the moment I push the door open, I still feel my scalp go numb. Inside is a huge glass cabin. A naked female body is suspended in the cabin. Even though she has her eyes closed, I can recognize that it is myself in the dream. Suddenly, a sigh comes from outside the door. I feel a chill all over. Ian comes in. You still found it. I kite rumble and back away. See? Ian. Yes. I am here. His tone is as calm as ever. In the cramped basement. There is not much space. I have nowhere to retreat. My back hits the cold glass cabin. Ian suddenly smiles. Your leg bone is shaking. At the moment of death. I think he is a bit good-looking when he smiles. I am so damn stupid. He slowly approaches me and whispers like a murmur. Do you know why I am so sure that you are not a goblin? The spontaneously arising chill is about to lift my skull. Ian pinches my chin and makes me turn my head to see the glass cabin more closely. In that surging colorless liquid. It is not a complete body at all that is soaked. But a whole piece of human skin. I directly can't catch my breath and faint. I once made a wish. Hoping to see Ian's handsome face every day. But I didn't expect that God really listened. Awake? How on earth does he tell if a skeleton is awake or not? I continue to pretend to be dead. Ian shrugs and says to himself, I wonder if putting it in a glass cabin and soaking it can wake it up. He spreads his arms as if to hug me. I do a carp jump. Awake. Awake. Ian smiles. He is so perverted. Too easily frightened. After so many years. You are still so timid. Ian is as calm as a cloud. Do you still remember the name Lynn? I repeat it blankly. Some miscarry and unorganized pictures keep appearing in my mind. I feel an inexplicable pain from it. Ian presses my shoulder with his hand. I look up at a loss. Lynn. We have met. 3 years ago. You found me and asked me to draw a piece of human skin for you. I look at the glass cabin again following his gaze. The beautiful human skin inside is floating up and down. Draw a piece of human skin? Ian's eyes are as black as ink. Yes. I am a skin painter. After ancient times when the heaven and earth were created. There were countless foreign races between heaven and earth. Until Enlil molded humans from clay. Humans became the most intelligent of all beings. A wisp of essence left behind after En was death, turned into a new ethnic group. They inherited part of the abilities of the ancient god Enwa and can mold human flesh. They are called skin painters. Ian is the only remaining skin painter in the present world. You are the first human to find me. You said your name is Lynn. He recalled. You asked me to draw a piece of human skin with the same appearance as you, and said that you would come and pick it up when the time comes. He pointed to that piece of human skin. Well, then you disappeared. Ian's tone is rather helpless. He looks at me. When the time comes. Although I see you. It's not easy to recognize you. After Ian took me home. He found that the piece of human skin stored in the basement had a connection with me. And then he gradually recognized that I am Lynn. I guess. Perhaps because the contract between you and me before your death was not completed. Your obsession remained after your death and attached to the objects around me. I still don't understand. Then why didn't you tell me earlier? Ian pondered for a moment and finally spoke. Because I suspected that you are a diviner. In ancient times, those who offered sacrifices and prayed were called witches if they communicated with ghosts and gods. And were called prayer leaders if they offered praises. Witches and prayer leaders could communicate with ghosts and gods above and offer sacrifices to the dead below. The diviners are descendants of witches and prayer leaders and are proficient in divination. This can explain why you, as a human being, can find me. Why could you foresee today, 3 years ago? As he spoke, Ian's eyes grew deeper. I can't figure out what power could kill a diviner. I lower my head shyly. So strong in your eyes. Ian, he said, I was overthinking. You don't have the mind to pretend to be weak but be strong. 11 Ian changed the topic. I can't find any fire reports in the past 3 years that match your memory. Everything has been deliberately erased. Do you know what this means? Ian rubbed his cuff. I was stunned. His eyes seemed to look into my heart. It's possible that the power that killed you is even stronger than human civilization. The glass cabin behind me is bone-chillingly cold. I don't remember what Ian said. But I believe him. I am just 206 bones. I can't think of any reason for him to lie to me. 12 Ian asked me to put on that piece of human skin. How is it? He asked. The girl in the mirror makes me feel familiar and strange. Ian probably saw my discomfort. Don't worry. The material is only plastic. He added coldly. Probably you are destined to be with plastic. Plastic is okay? I sincerely praise, Ian. Good craftsmanship. Ian glanced at me lightly. He asked me to go out together to visit someone Uncle Wei mentioned by his mother. All the existing ancient ethnic groups have jointly established an alliance. The research institute where Ian is located is supported by the alliance. And Vincent is an important figure. With a low-key personality, an unknown age. No one knows his real identity. His relationship with Ian is both teacher and friend. Uncle Wei will have news about the fire. I weakly asked, what if he doesn't have it? Ian smiled. You'd better pray that he has it. 13 Vincent is not what I thought. Although Ian calls him Uncle Wei, he doesn't seem very old. He is about 30 years old. Different from Ian's refined and handsome appearance. His every word and deed has a kind of casualness that comes from deep within. It makes people's eyes unconsciously follow him. In fact, if you look closely at his facial features, they are very plain. I can't even remember his appearance. It seems that if you throw him into a crowd, you won't be able to find him in an instant. He seemed to know that Ian would come and had already placed 2 cups of tea on the table early. Ian explained in a low voice to me, who didn't know the reason. Uncle Wei is a diviner. Vincent waved his hand. Not now. I can't help but ask why. Vincent's expression is very peaceful without any anger. He smiled faintly, because I was betrayed by a person I trusted. Somehow, I blurted out, those who betray others will definitely be punished. Vincent looked at me and suddenly laughed. He said, no. I hope she lives well. There's no way to continue this conversation. After holding back for a long time, I gave a thumbs up. You are so broad-minded. 14E, briefly told Vincent about me. Focusing on the fire I mentioned. Vincent is really used to big scenes. He circled me with interest. This is the first time I have seen the craftsmanship of a skin painter. It's truly lifelike. I couldn't wait to speak. Do you know about the fire? Vincent lowered his head and pondered. I don't know much. 3 years ago, there was a fire in an old building in the east of the city. It matches the situation you described. The reason why it can't be found is that the 3rd type of power appeared that day. I asked, the 3rd type of power? Ian explained, powers outside of existing human technology and known magic arts and not recorded are collectively called the 3rd type of power. Vincent nodded, yes. Since there were no casualties, both the official and the alliance chose to conceal it from the outside world and investigate it secretly. I pointed at my nose. No casualties. Then what am I? Ian on the side thought for a while. Could it be that the fire burned you until there was nothing left? Not a single trace. Vincent was more implicit. It's possible. The 3rd type of power is often extremely powerful beyond cognition. I shivered. Vincent curled his fingers and tapped the table lightly. That's all I know. If you still want to continue the investigation, there is only one last method. But destiny has its own arrangements. Is cause and effect really so important? He looked at Ian. Ian's expression was solemn. 15 After leaving Wei's house, I asked Tian, what is the last method he mentioned? Ian was silent and said, go back to the day of the fire. I was amazed. How is that possible? Originally it was impossible. But it's possible for you. Ian stood still under the steps. Diviners can deduce the future and also trace the past. But even if he doesn't say it, I can guess the more accurate the divination, the stronger the backlash. Ian lowered his eyes. And there was a shadow like a crow's feather under his long eyelashes. You don't need to bear the cost of forced deduction. I will find other ways. I listened quietly. After a long silence, I asked him, since you know this is a mess, why do you still get involved? Ian smiled. Because I promised you. I also smiled. Then let's do it together. What cost? Hopeless romantics are fearless. I reached out my hand to Ian. Behind him is the noon sun. Very warm. 16 to some extent. Diviners can be understood as people with opened heavenly eyes. The development trajectory of all things is invisible in the eyes of diviners. So in ancient times, such people were called semi-immortals. Ian said that the most basic ability of diviners is to judge fate by looking at faces. I planned to practice on him. But after looking for a long time, I only saw one word: handsome. I opened and closed my eyes. Then closed and opened them again. Still no change. I murmured, "It seems not working." Ian frowned. "Although you don't have a body, your soul is still there. You shouldn't be unable to see anything." After a while, he didn't know what he thought of. His voice was serious. "Let's go to the Alliance." In the confidential room of the Alliance, we saw more fire information. 3 years ago, a building in the east of the city suddenly caught fire. The fire was very large. But after the people were evacuated, the fire suddenly went out. Even more strangely, not only did there not leave any traces of the fire in the building, and it was as good as new. Even soon after, all ordinary people who had personally experienced this fire lost this memory. I found it unbelievable. What kind of power can make a high-rise building that has just been burned by a fierce fire instantly brand new again? And I'm not entirely sure what this means. Maybe tamper with human collective memory. Ian was silent. He got up and pulled me behind him, silently holding my hand. "Uncle Wei, come out." Vincent was actually standing in the shadow in the corner. I was terrified. Clearly there were only me and Dean in the room just now. Vincent still had the same face. But somehow he looked different. There seemed to be an invisible barrier around him that made me unable to breathe. Vincent looked at our clasped hands and smiled extremely wickedly. He beckoned to me. "Baby, come here." My brain instantly crashed. I asked Tian, "Do you think it's possible that he is calling you?" 17 Vincent had set up a magic formation in advance. His purpose of hiding information was to deceive us here. I was taken away by him, and locked in a villa. When I woke up, he was making tea. "Would you like some tea? Junshin silver needle that you like." I pressed my temple. The return of a large amount of memory made me extremely tired. The only thing I care about is, how is Ian? Vincent sneered. "Dead." I smiled even colder than him. "If he dies, I will die too." Vincent was furious. In the blink of an eye, the set of high-quality blue-glazed white fished set shattered and splattered everywhere. "Lin, that's enough. You have used this excuse to embarrass me for thousands of years." I turned my head. Vincent squatted in front of me and softened his voice. "Let's not quarrel. Let's start over. Okay?" He turned into Ian's appearance. "You like him. I can turn into his appearance. Or like this?" He changed into the face of a popular young actor. "Don't like Ian anymore. Be with me, like 1,000 years ago. Okay?" His eyes were full of pleading. Anyone would be softened by it. I gently lifted his face and didn't hide my malice at all. "Isn't this the situation you created yourself? 18 witches and prayer leaders can communicate with ghosts and gods above and offer sacrifices to the dead below. Those who communicate with ghosts and gods are called witches. And those who offer sacrifices to the dead are called prayer leaders. Vincent and I are not diviners. We are from ancient clans. He is a great witch. And I am a prayer girl. We are attendants of the gods and also fated spouses. Since I have memory, I have been following him. We will naturally become partners and jointly protect the clan. If it weren't for Ian is a foreigner who suddenly appeared. We know nothing about Tian's origin, but I decided to keep him because he showed extraordinary abilities and was good-looking." Vincent didn't agree. That was the first time I went against Vincent's will. 19 Ian's mind is full of whimsical ideas. He knew how to preserve fire, how to extract sea salt, and how to store food to avoid spoilage. He spoke and acted in an orderly and logical way, and was incredibly kind to every clansman. I didn't need to pay special attention to him on purpose. There would always be people telling me how remarkable he was. The lifespan of ordinary clansmen is not long. I could only pray for their smooth lives in the next life just before they were about to die. One day, a woman had a difficult childbirth. Her relatives knelt in front of me. I could only shake my head slightly sadly. At a critical moment, it was Ian who brought a divine herb. After she ate it, the blood from her lower body miraculously stopped. Later, I learned that the grass grew on a cliff. Ian risked his life to pick just one such plant. I didn't understand. In my eyes, life and death are both determined by fate. All I have to do is obey the will of heaven. But Ian said, life is the most precious thing, whether it's one's own or someone else's. A strange emotion spread in my heart. I said in a low voice, this is the first time I've heard such words. He opened his palm and grabbed the sun. In the place where I come from, everyone thinks so. Ian's act of saving people once again greatly increased his reputation. Undoubtedly, his existence had already offended Vincent. But I didn't expect that Vincent would target me. 20 Vincent tricked Ian to a dangerous place in my name. When I arrived, he had already cast a spell and caused Ian to roll down the mountain stream. If it were before, I would have thought that Vincent was the most important, and that whatever he did was right. But now, in his astonished eyes, I jumped down without hesitation. The moment I found Ian, I felt that the world was quiet. He was severely injured by the rapids and reefs and his eyes were half open. Did you come to save me? I said, yes. He smiled. I knew you would come. I didn't say anything else. But I knew that something was different. Since I saved Ian, Vincent began to target him more blatantly. Vincent hated me for betraying him, but also hoped that I could return to my former self. He kept obstructing me and Ian, repeating the same tricks again and again. It even reached a point where I was annoyed. At the same time, my relationship with Ian got better and better. He told me that gods are idealism, and we should believe in materialism. But when he witnessed several times in a row that Vincent and I fought using idealism, he said he needed to calm down. 21 No matter what means Vincent used, he couldn't stop us from falling in love. Ian and I decided to get married. That night, he took out a delicate ring from his bosom. He said, I have a secret in fact. I am from the future. This ring is the key that can help me return to the future. I said, oh. Ian couldn't believe it. Is this your reaction? I patted his shoulders sympathetically. I already knew. The divination result initially showed that he was from a different world. I knew very early on that he was different from me and us. A good kind of different. Ian was deflated. So that's it. He solemnly placed the ring in my palm. I have repaired the key. Now I give you the right to choose whether to go back or stay here. I will be by your side. He rarely said such things. His usually cool and jade-like face began to turn red. I didn't know what shyness was. I hugged his waist tightly. Wherever you go, I will go. Ian pushed my head amused lie. Don't be like this. This is called being a hopeless romantic. You have to listen to your own heart. I touched my own heart. It was beating very fast. 22 I decided to go to Ian's time. Because I wanted to see what the equal and peaceful world he talked about was like. Early the next morning, Ian was waiting for me at the agreed place. Ian. Maybe because he was about to go home, he was in an extremely good mood and was filled with a sense of joy. I was also very expectant. Let's go. Ian smiled and approached, helping me tidy up my hair. He seemed to sigh. Do you really love me so much? Then help me do one thing. Okay? I nodded dignity. In the next second, a raging fire ignited on my body. Ian's face turned into Vincent's in the fire. He smiled and called me, good baby. The fire was not hot or painful. It took away all my memories about Ian. I became the prayer girl who was unsympathetic and only had Vincent in her eyes before I met Ian. Ian also forgot about me. But when Vincent wanted to execute Ian, I instinctively stopped him. Vincent's face was unpredictable. In the end, he still gave in. Ian was locked in a dark cave. From then on, Vincent wished he could follow me everywhere. Whenever I saw his face, I always felt that I had forgotten something. Until Vincent and I set the wedding date. When he went to prepare the ceremony, I found a sheepskin book in his residence. It was filled with a large number of patterns and words with unclear meanings. It only talked about 3 things: longevity, immortality, skin painting, changing appearance, soul devouring. I'm not entirely sure what this means. Maybe tampering with memory. As I flipped through, new words emerged on the sheepskin. They seemed to consciously flow from the paper surface into my fingertips. Only then did I remember what I had forgotten. I took the sheepskin book to find Ian. Although Vincent didn't kill him, after staying in the cave without sunlight for several months, he was as thin as a bag of bones. I carefully helped him up and softly called his name, Ian. He opened his eyes weakly. "I knew you would come," Ian said. "Don't cry. I remembered everything. I've been waiting for you." 23 I helped Ian out of the cave. To return to his world, we had to go to the place where he first landed. I unrotated the ring. When the space-time door was about to open, a pair of hands suddenly firmly grabbed my ankle. It was Vincent. He stared at me firmly. "Look. I caught you." Ian's face was as cold as frost. But the space-time door had already opened. Under the huge impact, Vincent was forced to let go. He knelt on the ground and revealed an almost crazy smile. I vaguely felt uneasy. Sure enough, after returning to modern times, there was always an invisible force monitoring Ian and me. We continuously changed our appearances relying on skin painting on the sheepskin book to avoid the successive peaks. It was like we were always on the run. I gently traced the word longevity on the sheepskin book with my finger. It was Vincent. He was a genius in the clan and could understand this sheepskin book better than me. He had lived until now, waiting for me and Ian. A layout spanning thousands of years. I divined countless times. The divination results all showed certain death. Ian hugged me from behind. I held his hand tightly. "Ian, do you trust me?" He smiled. "From the first day I met you, I have trusted you." "Good. Certain death. Then we can find a way out by putting ourselves in a desperate situation." I tampered with the Ian's memory about me. Before I did it, I unsensed it. He subconsciously pressed my hand but quickly let go. He closed his eyes. "If this is what you want." My tears dropped on his forehead clearly. "You are the hopeless romantic." When he opened his eyes again, Ian looked at me with a strange expression. In his memory, I was an unexpected guest we met by chance. I promised to come and pick up that piece of human skin in 3 years. When I went out, I wrapped a soul thread around Ian. As long as there was still a wisp of soul, I would come to find him. 24 under the clear sky. I stood on the rooftop of a high-rise building and said slowly, "Vincent, aren't you going to show up?" In the next second, Vincent and I stood facing each other. He said, "Lynn, you finally figured it out." I smiled. "In your dreams." I turned around and jumped off the rooftop. Vincent immediately followed and jumped down. He hugged me and his tone could even be said to be doting. "Do you think I will let you die?" It was so funny. I said, "It's me who wants you to die. Hopeless romantic. Go die. No power can harm a great witch except a prayer girl. But in this way, I won't be able to live either." I stabbed his heart with all my strength. Blood seeped from the corner of Vincent's eye. This was the first time I saw him injured. But the panic in his eyes was not because of himself, but because of me. After all, he had lived much longer than me. My body disappeared in the backlash of his witch power. I knew this wouldn't be the end. Because the divination result before I came showed that my only chance in this life was 3 years later. That is now. But I didn't see any sign of a turnaround. I only felt that Vincent was even crazier. I asked, "Where is Ian?" Vincent snapped his fingers. An extremely elaborate and beautiful wedding dress instantly appeared in front of me. He said, "Put it on and you will see," and immediately. This wedding dress was very beautiful. I probably guessed what he wanted to do. But, I said, "There's no need for such formalities." Vincent's finger stroked my hair. "Be obedient. You owe me a wedding." I raised the corner of my mouth sarcastically. After putting on the wedding dress, I was taken by Vincent to a church for a wedding. At the wedding, I saw Ian. His eyes looking at me were as calm as an ancient well. I sighed in my heart. Sure enough, he didn't remember me again. The wedding was arranged very carefully. The background music was from a bone flute. The melodious and wild tune made me feel very familiar. Vincent whispered in my ear, "Remember? This is your favorite tune." He intentionally wanted to please me, but I couldn't remember at all. I suddenly felt that someone was looking at me. I subconsciously looked back. Ian's seat was empty. 25 baby. Be attentive. I was completely tired of Vincent's tricks. "Where is Ian?" He glanced at that seat infuriately. "It has nothing to do with me." Vincent seemed to find my appearance very interesting. "Lynn, I told you long ago that he is not as simple as you think. You think I am a bad person. Does that mean Ian must be a good person?" He approached me in a tempting way and wanted to continue talking. But suddenly, light pillars lit up around him. Countless talismans were lit one after another. From near to far, it trapped Vincent in place like a chain. Ian stood beside the light pillar. His eyebrows and eyes were illuminated by the light. He opened his arms to me. "Lynn." Somehow, I couldn't help but glance at Vincent, who was still struggling like a trapped beast. He was shouting in pain, as if he was saying something to me. 26 Vincent wanted to tamper with Ian's memory but accidentally made him remember everything. 3 years ago, Ian Vincent fell from a high-rise building, but he miraculously survived. This scene was seen by many people. He tampered with the memories of everyone present. After the incident, even if someone had residual memories, they only remembered that they had experienced a fire. This matter was already recorded by the official and the Alliance. Ian contacted them. After a joint meeting, it was unanimously determined that Vincent was a top-level dangerous element. That's why there was a joint operation at the wedding. Everything finally settled down, just as my divination said. The only turnaround was 3 years later. Vincent was locked in a special prisoner cell. After all, he had stayed in the Alliance for many days. Someone came to Ian and said that Vincent wanted to see me. Ian asked me what I thought. I was lying on the sofa, resting with my eyes closed. "I won't see him. What's there to see? I know everything he wants to say." 27 Ian continued to return to the research institute. I often disguised myself as a skeleton and stayed by his side. He didn't seem to care about my appearance. On the day Vincent committed suicide, I was learning to play Minesweeper like Ian. Just after a few clicks, I was blown up by a mine. Ian's cell phone suddenly rang. After answering the call, he just said, and hung up. Then he said, "Vincent is dead." My hand holding the mouse trembled and I clicked the wrong place. On the computer screen, I was blown up by a mine again. Vincent's death made me sigh a little. Life is unpredictable. Who knows what will happen in the next second? I became even more clingy to Ian than before. But Ian said he had something to do and asked me to wait for him in the laboratory. Bored, I opened the sheepskin book after a long time. Longevity. Skin painting. Soul devouring. What are you looking at? Ian happened to enter the door. I smiled. "Don't you recognize it?" Although Vincent's voice was completely blocked by the light pillars that day. But I understood his lip language. He said, "Don't trust Ian. The sheepskin book is his thing." I unlowered his head. "You already know." The sheepskin book belonged to Ian from the very beginning, but for the ancient language in the book, he could only understand soul-devouring, so he chose to come to the era of me and Vincent. Originally, I really liked Vincent. It was Ian who tampered with my memory. Vincent was extreme. After being stimulated, he got the sheepskin book and began to be unscrupulous. This was just what Ian wanted. But he underestimated the ability of the ancient Great Witch. Even with my help, Vincent was still difficult to deal with. That's why the three of us were so deeply entangled for so long. Ian looked dejected. Lynn, forget all those. Okay? I shook my head. I can't forget. He sighed deeply. Then I'll have to help you. Red light emerged from Ian's palm. Flames were about to ignite around. He also wanted to burn my memory. I felt that everything was really meaningless. Without memory. Am I still me? And Vincent. In fact, both of you are quite meaningless. I tore off a page of the sheepskin book and the flames suddenly died down. Ian couldn't believe it. I chuckled. Want to know why? Because this is my thing. Naturally. I know how to defend against it. I spent my whole life writing this sheepskin book back then. But the divination showed that I couldn't practice longevity unless I waited for a predestined person. My predestined person is you. I gently clenched my fists in his direction. Return what you saw from Vincent to me. Soul devouring can not only tamper with memory, but also read memory. Just now Ian lied to me. Vincent wasn't dead yet. He went out to read all of Vincent's memories before Vincent died. Vincent was a genius and the only one who had practiced longevity. I unwanted it. I wanted it even more. The process of memory extraction would be a bit painful. Ian's handsome face had bulging veins due to excessive exertion. I suddenly fell silent. After a while, I said, if you had chosen not to go out just now, perhaps we would have had a different ending. There is a natural rule between witches and prayer leaders. I can't harm Vincent while protecting myself. If Ian hadn't been tempted by longevity and hadn't gone to see Vincent, all my plans would have failed. Perhaps I would have become an ordinary person and stayed by his side. But who let Ian be my predestined person? He was destined to be my most perfect move. Before leaving, Ian's forehead was covered with dense cold sweat. Just like when we first met. With his last strength, he asked a question that seemed a bit ridiculous to me. Did you ever love me? I walked straight to the door without looking back. I loved you. But I love longevity more. Thinking about it, I said the last words to him in this life. I'm really tired of you hopeless romantics.